What's up, everybody? Kyle Barboza here, bass player, music educator, and I want to explain to you the real definition of flat and sharp, because I noticed that a lot of people get confused about the nuances of when this word is used, especially in chord changes and lead sheets. Okay, so I'm going to write down my definition, and then we'll talk about it. This is maybe not the definition you'll see like in a music dictionary, but I think this is the best functional definition of flat and sharp. So we'll talk about it in a second. Here we go. Okay, here we go. This is the really important thing that I want you to take from this. The words flat and sharp are modifier words. They affect whatever number or word they're attached to. That's very important. So first of all, flat means that you are lowering something by a half step or 1 fret on the electric bass. And sharp is the opposite. It means raised. We're talking about pitch here, by the way. The pitch is raised by a half step or 1 fret. And many of you are going, yeah, I already knew that. Super obvious. Well, here's the thing that confuses people. Remember I said it's a modified word. So let's take a look at a couple of examples where this gets people confused. Okay, so here we have an E7 chord, right? And when you see a 7 chord, it means that it's a major triad plus a flat 7th or a minor 7th, right? So let's talk about that. What does it mean to be a flat 7? Well, let's take a look at the key of E major, because when you have a chord in a lead sheet, no matter what, you're always talking about the root note of the chord. So whatever numbers come after the chord or symbols, minor, major, 7, 13, 6, whatever it is, it's pertaining to the root note. And not only that, it's pertaining to the key or the major scale of the root note. That's super, super important. Now, up here, I have my E major scale. It's got 4 sharps in it. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. And I'll say this again for the 50th time on this channel. If you know your major scales, you have now unlocked a passageway to music theory, but you really got to know your major scales. But anyway, so I've got my E major scale. Remember, we're talking about the key of E major when we're talking about chord symbols. Okay, so flat 7. Many people, I've seen many people say, okay, so the 7th of E is D sharp. Okay, the flat 7 is D flat. It's a flat D, the 7th, D sharp, flat D. That's not correct, okay? And some of you are going, yeah, that's not correct. I know that's not correct. But why is it not correct? And here's why. It's because when we say the term flat 7, we mean the 7th lowered by a half step. It doesn't necessarily mean that the letter itself is flat. It means that the 7th, which is D sharp, is lowered by a half step, which brings it to D natural. Okay, so the flat 7 in an E7 chord, or the flat 7th of E, is D natural. All right, let's do one more example that you'll definitely see out in the wild. Okay, so up here, we've got a chord that you might see in a blues. So let's say you're playing in a B-flat blues, and you see the chord B-flat 7 sharp 11. Well, first of all, we talked about what a 7 means on a chord. It means we're talking about the flat 7 of B-flat. And then the sharp 11 means the sharp 11 of B-flat, right? Which pertains to, just a quick tidbit, when you talk about the 11th of a chord, it's talking about the 4th scale degree, just an octave above. So I'll just write that in parentheses. We're talking about a sharp 4. Okay, so here we go. So the flat 7th of B-flat, again, we're pertaining to the key of B-flat. When we talk about any chord, it's the root note's major scale or major key. A is the 7th. The flat 7, we lower it by a half step. It would be A flat. Okay, that's the flat 7. But the sharp 11, let's talk about that. Well, we're talking about the 4, the sharp 4. And if I know my B flat scale, I know that the 4th is E flat. So what's the sharp 4? Remember, sharp means raised by a half step. So we bring that E flat up by a half step and we get E natural. Just a regular old E, not E sharp. All right, so just quick review. If we have notes, just notes, right? Like a B flat. We call it a B flat because it's a B that's been lowered by a half step. It's a half step lower than B, B flat. And likewise, when we're talking about lead sheets and chord changes, when we have a term like flat 3 or flat 7, we're talking about lowering the 7th scale degree by a half step. And again, we're talking about the major scale. Okay, so the 7 lowered by a half step. That's the real meaning of flat and sharp. And that distinction can be really, really helpful if you need to kind of remind yourself of those few things. Again, here are the takeaways from this quick lesson. The term flat or sharp is a modifier word. It modifies whatever it's attached to. If it's attached to a number or a letter, it means you are taking that thing and lowering the pitch by a half step or raising the pitch by a half step. The second thing I want you to take away from this is when you're talking about chords, like on a lead sheet, any chord, the number of the chord, whether it's a B flat major 7, B flat 7, B flat 6, all of the numbers in the chord are pertaining to the major scale of the root note of the chord. So real quick, if I'm in the key of C, and then my first chord is a C, but then my second measure, the chord is an E, well, even though maybe my song is in the key of C, that E chord is talking about the key of E major. So it's an E major chord. And if I know my major scale, E, G sharp, B. We're not talking about the key of C major. We're talking about the key of E when we're talking about that chord. Okay? Have I have I cemented that enough for you? Let me know in the comments if it's still confusing. I'm happy to explain further. All right, so those two big takeaways. So go forth. I hope that just alleviates maybe a little bit of confusion when you're reading, lead sheets, chord changes, things like that, trying to figure out arpeggios and things like that. All right? All right, I'll see you guys on the next one.